So one of the things that I get asked quite a lot is when a business identifies the need for SEO or PPC, what level of support that they typically need. And in the industry, there seems to be three levels of support that you can really look at. So there's an SEO consultant, there's an SEO freelancer, there's a little bit of subtle differences between the two traditionally, and then you've also got the agency model in one side. So I just want to break down kind of each section of SEO support, kind of who they're predominantly geared for, what the output typically is, and also the negative sides of each arena, and also kind of split them over three tiers, and it should give you a bit of an indication of what you might need going forward and what levels of support. So the first one is, and this is the SEO consultant, and people who call themselves a consultant tend to have the notion that they're obviously consulting the business rather than being completely ingrained in the business as a hands-on kind of approach. So traditionally, a consultant would work with an existing team, an existing marketing team, or just a wider business function to consult and provide guidance on the best practices around search. So that could be, for PPC, it could be account structure. It could be, doing workshops for the internal guys, essentially being an expert on the end of the phone when needed, and also proactively looking for things you can do to optimize the site and commercial performance. So consult traditionally, and there are obviously everyone's different, everyone's services is different, but they're normally relatively hands off, more, I guess, vocal or report gathering, intel, expertise led services. Now, the downside of consultants in general is when you need that hand holding in the sense that they actually need to build something and create deliverables. With a consultant, you don't always get that kind of ingrained service where they'll provide literally everything and do the work. Another thing as well is consultants and guidance and expertise doesn't come with a direct ROI. So things can get lost in translation. So if a consultant recommends a certain structure, a certain way of working, I'm going to translate that advice into operations. Operations, then that's the ROI there, but it's not necessarily against the consultant's billables. So you can't really operate them on a P&L per se because it's intangible advice. There are exceptions to some consultants who are more of a freelancer, which brings us on to the next part of a freelancer, where these guys is probably the closest you'll get to having an employee doing search on behalf of your business. So freelancer tends to operate on a find and fix model where they'll here's the issues, we'll maybe divvy up the work between the teams, who does what, and then the freelancer would physically operate as an extension to marketing. So they're heavily invested in the business, so they're very under the skin of the business. The people you can just kind of WhatsApp and all that kind of stuff. It's very kind of ingrained and provides a bit of consultancy as well. So education is a big part of freelancing, where we'd obviously bring things to the table, why, and then obviously we'll trace that campaign through from start to finish, make tweaks as we go. So it's very kind of roll your sleeves up and have a go. So the downside of freelancing is it's a very small team, usually one person, and it often requires being quite involved in a business so you understand seasonality, product ranges, high margin, low margin, what success looks like, and you kind of lose sleep when sales are bad and you're really excited when sales are going well. So it's really invested in that business. And the downside is there's only a limited amount of capacity you can have that level of involvement with a client is. So capacity for a freelancer is usually a really big problem to have. And it's usually if you get a freelancer and a good retainer where they've got sufficient time to get under the skin of your business and it can be cost effective against PAYE and things like that as well. But capacity is an issue. And the last one is tunnel vision. So if that freelancer is only working with one business, not really having exposure to other clients or their challenges, they're not really learning much. So they're just applying what they know. And there is a bit of a risk of stagnation there as well. Similar to the consultant, but albeit the consultant might have access to more businesses because they don't need to be as invested as they're working around kind of best practice and things like that as well. So a freelancer can also be on a P&L. So you can kind of say a freelancer costs £1,000 per month, organic sales are X amount, and we believe we can tether that much to the freelancer. Pounds in, pounds out mentality when it comes to freelancing. because you own something essentially as an employee, an indirect employee. There's always a risk of IR35. That's always a consideration as well. And the last model is the agency model. So the agency is, I'm thinking of traditional agency, that's kind of medium level, perhaps tier two agency, where they have an access to a wide amount of skills. So they'll have people who specialize in analytics, people who specialize in SEO, PPC, and you've got that wide network of support there within the service delivery team. The other benefits are a lot of them have exposure to enterprise level SEO and PPC, so they can handle all budgets, all objectives, and a good agency should be able to basically run with most campaigns and do it really well and draw on a lot of expertise. The downside of agencies, slightly more than the other two in the sense that they're more pricey. So obviously what a typical agency will have is sales staff who will facilitate that sale, and then they'll kind of step out of the campaign, albeit they still got to pay the wages. And also they like to be commission based, which will come from the profit of the campaign, so you've got to pay for that. Another thing in the sales process as well is you'll have usually limited exposure to the service delivery team. So proposal, probably service delivery team, speaking from experience, don't like proposals because it takes you off client work. So you just try and get it done with as minimal effort as possible usually. So what's kind of chucked in a proposal on a sales pitch usually isn't reflective of the work that you're going to do. And I'd sense check this as well. If you've had an agency proposal in the past and you kind of 6-7 months in the line, go back to the proposal, see what they said they would do and what they're currently doing today as well. So you get little exposure to the service delivery team, especially if you've got an account manager that's intermediate that relationship. So why would people not want to show the service delivery team? That's usually because they might be using freelancers. Likely wouldn't be using consultants, probably more freelancers. And churn rate's a big problem for a lot of agencies. So these account managers kind of sit in between that as well. So and then contract length is the last one, where potentially you could be looking at 12 to 24 months contract. You have to get break points and things like that in various intervals. But typically with contractors or freelancers, consultants, they wouldn't have a lengthy contract period, if any at all. So yeah, a lot of the stuff as well is with agencies is it can be relationship building rather than deliverables. So there's a risk there, there's risk and reward with all of them. Depends on the needs of the business. If you're a huge business and there's loads of management between you and kind of the board level, then agencies could be a good fit. But if you want kind of that agility, someone who's really heavily invested in the business, typically freelancer. But if you just need an injection of expertise, usually consultants are the best as well. But usually people are self-descriptive as a final point. So you'd have SEO and PPC professionals. When you declare themselves as a consultant or a freelancer or an agency, they tend to behave a certain way, but that's not reflective of all the industry and everyone's slightly different. So it's always something to kind of factor in, always kind of engage people, see what they're offer, because even though we're giving them these terms, they might actually operate in a different way than what I'm describing here as well. So everybody's different. And the last 3 points that I'll leave you with is kind of 3 warnings, I guess, when you're going through this process of SEO. First one being is be very cautious of resellers. So these are people who can sell SEO and PPC exceptionally well, but they'll either have a third party delivery team or they'll physically recruit somebody on the back of running that business as well. So always be careful that you've got access to the service delivery team at an early stage to see who's working on the campaign. Number 2 is check out the business that you plan to work with, whether they've got any recruitment ads going at the minute. So this could include things like SEO executive that they're recruiting for, and what you're looking for in the job ad. This might be overkill, but you're kind of putting your business on the line with this new provider. Is look at how they build job specs, and you're looking specifically around. If you've got somebody who has a job spec that wants someone to do SEO, PPC, analytics, social media, and loads of 5 or 6 different channels, look at the tools that they're using, whether it's just like very generic and recruiting junior. So you might find out that actually staff in this particular company or small freelance boutique agency or whatever it is are actually got multiple hats. So jack of all trades, master of none. So you lose that expertise there. So look at what they're recruiting for. whether they're kind of sales staff focused, and also look at the sales staff as well, just kind of see how they're incentivized, whether, well, a lot of agencies might just do anything to get you to sign the dotted line, then just let them down on service delivery as well. So, and the last one is, and this catches a lot of people out, but case studies. So a lot of clients will look at case studies of other sites and agencies, say, wow, that's a really good brand that they're working with, but it'll be known that that case study might have been 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and actually the relationships kind of, fell down, and the actual case study side is not a reflection of the work that they deliver today as well. So case studies can be dated, they can become quite stagnant, and it's just something to be cautious of that. They should be gauged fully on what they can deliver your business, not what they've done in the past, and what their showcase have done in the past. Might be a small selection of clients to work with, and also quite stagnant, and nothing's been kind of recently put forward in case studies. Ask to speak to them as well. So if someone's got like a huge PLC there, so if you've got a point of contact I could just get a reference for. So underrated, so underrated. And also look at things like reviews when the last one was done and that kind of good stuff as well. So hopefully that helps. Three kind of channels there over SEO and PPC that I typically get exposure to. And I know it'll be quite a difficult thing to get your head around when you're trying to work out what support you need in the longer term as well. But any questions, jump over to the site. Got my contact details there if you want to ask any questions, or social channels in the footer as well.